So Eric, so nobody's going to be able to talk to us. We can talk to each other, and they can hear us talking, but they can't talk to us because it's on listen mode.
Can we open that up temporarily in case someone has questions?
No, if they want to have questions, they'll have to write them down, because the problem is, Eric, everybody starts talking and it's too hard to control. It gets.
Well, they won't. They're not going to do that when Janny's here.
He's going to a board meeting.
Frank, you want to explain the chat for people that may not know?
Yeah, I will. So we've got 25 people signed up right now. So everybody who's on, I'll say this again because we've got a few minutes before we start. But if you have any questions, go down to your control panel that's on your computer, and you'll see at the bottom that says chat. Click on that, and the arrow will point down, and you'll see a note there that says, "Good evening, everyone. We will start the seminar in a few moments. If when you have any questions during the presentation, go to the chat box at the bottom of the control panel and type in your question." So type it in. So it'll say type message here. Okay.
Can everybody see my screen where I have that control panel?
Yes. Yeah. If you can't see Eric's screen, write something down in the chat box. Just say no.
I'm seeing your desktop, Eric.
I'm sorry?
I'm seeing your desktop.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We're not going to show any of your handiwork, Scott, so don't worry about that.
I was getting nervous, man. You got a whole file on me.
Oh, geez.
I am going, Dave Bunker. I'm gonna try to unmute you. Hopefully you've got your sound on now. Audio pin. Okay. Eric, I sent you an audio pin.
I don't know what that is.
I mean, not Eric. I'm sorry, David. David
Oh,
Bunker.
okay.
Sorry. But anybody who has a question, just go down to the chat box and type it in. And we'll also do this during the presentation. So if you have a question that's pertinent to the photograph that we have up on the screen, type it in, and then I'll relay it to Scott, our electrician. Okay, he's our presenter. Okay, so we got 3 seconds, guys, and we're going to start this on time. So it's 7 o'clock on my clock. So welcome, everybody. I hope everybody is able to get on okay. We have about 38 people on and 5 staff, so we've got like 40, 41, 42, 43 people. If you have any questions, go to the chat box and type it in, and then we'll relay that if it's a question that pertains to the photographs. Hopefully you should enjoy this. Scott's a great electrician. He was at the peer review house in July and did a round robin with some of the other presenters, and we got a great reply from everybody that they said that he did a really good job. So without anything else, Eric, do you want to put up some photos?
What these are just different photos that actually I took out of my file. A couple of them you may have seen in the past on the Facebook page where I toss them up, but most of these will be kind of new to you. I guess the question is with these photos are these things you would have seen or you would have looked for, or would you have recognized the possible implications of the condition? So I've got about 25 photos or so, and I think that'll be more than enough. This is the first time we've really done this. So we're going to see how this one goes. And Scott's really the one that's going to be talking about most of these. So Scott, go ahead. This is a main panel, and this is the service entrance conduit into the main panel.
Yeah, this is, well, as everyone could probably see, there's not a lot of contact metal to metal. And this is one of the more important connections in a house when the service conduit comes in, if it's not attached to the metal, you don't have a good bond. So if that metal coming in was to ever be energized by one of the utilities hots, that would be really bad news, because it could just sit there and wail away because it's got no clear reference back. And I mean, this could shake, rattle, and roll and weld and do all kinds of crazy things because it's not connected well. It would dance a lot, but it would not probably blow a breaker. A breaker I'm speaking about is generally ComEd's. Well, it would be on one of their secondaries, which can often be pretty far away and take a lot to break. So this is a bad recipe for.
I'll ask a question, and hopefully somebody else is watching for other questions. I don't think I've ever seen evidence of arcing at these bad connections.
It would take one of the hot conductors coming in. You know, you get two hots on a residential service. It would take one of them to be brushed against the side of that metal coming in. Is it a rare occurrence? Yes. But is it an important one? Really important. Really, really important. And that's why you run into the bonding bushings, because it's recognized as such an important connection that additional connection insurance, if you will, is added to every conduit that comes into a main panel in terms of bonding bushings.
Okay. Any questions on this
No,
one? We can always come back.
Yeah, no questions on right now. I'll let you know, Eric, if there are.
Okay.
Again, same reason we have grounding or bonding bushings. That is an inferior connection. That's what's called a concentric knockout, which means it would keep growing. This is probably 1.25 inches, I'm guessing, and it enlarges up to 2 inches, but just by moving around and sometimes just the placement of the panel, that can get all weakened, and a big surge, which really we have to concern ourselves with, because big surges can be introduced from ComEd or Mother Nature, and they can be pretty devastating. That's why this is a key area. Also, technically, if you ever had a failed neutral, there are times when that could be a suitable substitute. That gets a little technical, but I've seen it where it would have saved a home before, and where it did save a home.
Okay. Well, Scott, we've got a couple questions.
Okay.
One question is, what is the repair? And the second one, maybe you can answer these together. Do you worry about the painted metal on the cabinet and no grounding bushing installed?
On the first photo we saw, that is do it over. There's no way to rectify that. That's an incorrect fitting. In fact, I'm not even familiar with that fitting, unless I've seen it before and not paid attention, commercial or something. But at any rate, that's a do-over. You have to redo that. That would be a pretty cumbersome job there. And then on the second one, a grounding bushing is actually a suitable repair for that. The paint on there, yeah, technically you're supposed to do it. I don't know anyone who does it. If you look at any of those lock nuts, which is the thing that is on the pipe, but where exactly, Eric, yeah, that's a lock nut, and they're to be on there very forcefully tight, and then they are supposed to, if you will, cut into the metal as you're attaching them if they're attached correctly. So that generally suffices. If you read a lot of the standards, it should actually you should sand that down. Nobody does in the world,
but as I recall, Scott, we really shouldn't be depending on those concentric rings.
No.
Okay.
Those are there for convenience, if you will. I mean,
Right.
They keep the pipe from just falling through. And what you're really looking at, unless you bore your own hole in there, that would be a good, nice, sturdy one, if it was correctly sized. But the grounding bushing is what makes up for the inferior connection point there.
Mm-hmm. So they could put like a washer. There's a special washer that would go on there that would kind of.
There's a couple different remedies for that. That's not as large of a thing at all. You could get retrofit that actually go around existing plastic bushings, easy for me to say, and they tighten down. That was one way. And then there's a spike type that creates a gap in there as well. So there's a couple different remedies.
Okay.
I thought you just said you never see that.
I'm sorry?
That's an example of what you said you never see. It's exactly.
Well,
why
yes,
do that.
here I've seen it, but not on the
Yeah.
main.
No. But this is a good illustration of that. The potential here, and I'll tell you why that exists without ever having been to that house, is that is a loose piece of it's a loose piece of conduit that it was trying to clear a fault, and it didn't because it didn't have a good connection. That's a result of a loose connection on a fitting. And it is exactly why we use grounding bushing. That's a great example there.
Okay. Now, Scott, you and I have talked about, and you've told me a lot about condensation that can form in the panels and the significance of rusted conditions and corrosion and how it compromises the integrity of the system.
Yeah, it can change the metal. Yeah, I've taken an electrical tester up to some wires that are connected and or the terminals they're connected to in a panel. Oh my gosh! I mean, you're not even getting a reading, or you're getting somewhat of a reading. That's a bad sign there. And much worse than the sin of the other obvious one, the double tapping. Probably is the bad metal.
Mm-hmm. This was just a weird one that we decided to keep in here. This is the only one I've ever seen. And what did you think this was for, Scott?
They're manufactured. There have been cases where a very studious municipal inspector could say, you have really broken code with the amount of conductors or the length with which you're doing something, and now you've derated that conductor so it can only carry 10 amps. And basically, the panel would have to be outfitted that way. So if you don't follow good practices, you really deteriorate and you add a lot of resistance to the circuit, and you shouldn't carry more than 10 amps because that thing might not blow. Again, everyone will hear me say that a lot. When what we're trying to do with electric is to get breakers to open. And when you make that hard through degraded connection points or materials or improper installations, things that create a lot of resistance prevent us from clearing faults, which is what electric's all about.
Oh, okay. Eric, I'm sorry. Could you go back one photograph? There was a question. Is that a double tap? It was on the previous photo. Yeah, that's it.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So it was just a question that was asked. Sorry.
Okay.
Now, this is in the United States, we do not monitor the neutrals in most cases. So this could go undetected. It's certainly something an inspector should report, because somewhere, somehow, the metal, the neutral connection, something is causing these wires to really, and we're not watching them. We don't watch the neutral wires in a panel. The breakers are all on the hot wires. This is where that becomes really dangerous and something that's really worth looking at.
And this would be a good example of derating. You want to talk about that a little bit? When the wires have been heated up.
Yeah, so if you look at some of those wires, you'll see that they've actually changed colors. This conductor changes properties. So repeated, heating and cooling down and all that can do that. And the other thing is the aluminum conductors they can move around a lot more. They do move around a lot more than copper. It's hard to tell if those are all aluminum. I think they probably a lot of them are.
Yeah,
but they need to be tightened.
This does not seem to be.
No, there's a couple that aren't.
But even the bonding strap looks like it's had a little problem.
Yeah,
But,
yeah. So when electric is really challenged to make a connection somewhere, then it goes to all available things. There's a lot of bad information out there about electric takes the path of least resistance. Electric takes any path available. So there could be a number of reasons why this is happening, but it's probably a loose neutral connection at either the service equipment, because this one doesn't look bad right here. That looks like it's service neutral. So outside at the fuse box or maybe ComEds, but yeah, this would really, this should be called in, especially if you think about how dangerous it is that we're not even watching these white wires. The breakers are watching the reds and the blacks and the other colors.
Scott, a question is, how often is aluminum supposed to be torqued?
You know, if you read the manufacturing specs, it says anytime we do a panel, we're looking at one, I'll always try and tighten them down because they do fluctuate in size. So I'm not sure what that regulation is or it was when these were manufactured. We don't see a lot of aluminum wiring, but there's enough to concern yourself and be familiar with it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hang on one question. There is, no, 1 second. There is a question. And somebody said, do I see metal fatigue cracks in the bus on the left? I think so. That might have been back.
Go the other way on that. I talk about probably the last one is a neutral bus. You get it figured at all?
This is the last one we just did.
Right. No, go to that one. See if you could blow it up if you could, Eric.
Right in here.
Go to the left a little more, maybe.
A little more?
To the left, yeah. Oh, could be. On the top there a little bit,
Well, so I think what he's saying is, I think the bottom where the neutrals are, and it looks like on the far left-hand side where the branch neutrals are, and also in the 1, 2, 3, the fourth one looks like it might be like in the middle, sort of. Looks like the
here?
fourth one. There might be a crack there. I think maybe that's what he's referring to.
That's possible.
Oh, yeah, look at that one right next to the bonding strap. Yeah, that looks like kind of a crack right there. Yeah,
right.
Good spot.
Good. Yeah, good eye too.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good eye.
This one could be missed.
Yeah.
In case let's close this up a little bit here. A little bit blurry. This almost looks like a lead water line coming in, the way it's kind of bulbous out there, but then the discolored conductor in here. So that could be an easy one to miss if you're going a little bit too fast, or you don't have a good light in there.
Good find. Okay.
Let's see.
I do have a question, but maybe we'll see. Maybe, Scott, if we have time, you can answer this later because you want to get through your photos here. But the question is, what is the correct way to install a whole house surge protector? Many times it's seen connected to main service connect or main lugs.
Yeah. Okay. No problem.
Okay. So maybe we can get back to that.
Sure. Oh, rainbow.
Pretty.
Yes. Yeah, discoloration there.
Yeah. And
did you? Go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry.
Yeah, as I recall on this one, this was the only problem I came across was the discoloration.
Yeah, and this looks like when you look to the lug, the top right-hand side there, it almost looks like that bus bar has warped.
Yeah, you had mentioned that.
Yeah.
Down in here, kind of over to the left.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, I mean, just because you see it like that doesn't mean that there wasn't another wire going to it at one point. So,
Right.
um,
Right.
did you notice? It looks like it's well, the hot conductor is WTHH. It's just THHN, which would be copper for that one. This guy, look at how silver looking the strands are down
Down
there.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah. Let's
I
see
think
if we
it's
can.
Lucy.
Oh, do you?
I think so. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, you'll see some weird things where they'll put one aluminum with a couple coppers. That's pretty
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a 3-second fix, but it's important that you get every strand in there, because if you say we need a number 4 there, you can't have a number 8 there. You gotta have the whole conductor. Good catch.
What would they how would you properly secure that stranded conductor?
It
Obviously
looks
it
like
doesn't work.
you probably have enough play. You would take it out of its other it's landed somewhere in the panel. Take it out, wrap it around, get it tighter, and then bring it down onto there and get the majority of it. Those are pretty universal fittings that go up to a pretty large size. That probably goes up to 3.
Wouldn't there be some kind of clamp that you could put over that wire and then tighten down on the clamp to get that connection?
No, not that I know of. No.
Oh. Okay.
That's
This
a big.
seems,
That's a big lug. That's almost like a commercial size lug for the.
yeah.
It's as big as the grounding bushing.
Yeah, I always get a little leery when I see so many strands that are
Yeah, exactly.
not secured. Okay.
Oh,
This is
nothing
one
wrong
of
with
these
that.
things,
Go ahead.
this is one of these things where, and actually yesterday when I was looking at these pictures, I caught something in here I didn't ever see before. But this one I could see where you kind of get hung up on all the armored cable. But if you look more at it, there's more here. So I want to show you. You've got open conductors here. You've got, let's see if we can zoom in on this thing. They decided to run these wires elsewhere. But the reason I like this photo is because if you look too quickly, you may not see everything that is here. And actually, it doesn't even look like there's a fastener up here on the bushing.
Wow.
I did not notice that before. The other thing I didn't notice until yesterday, I don't think there's a cap or cover plate on this
Right.
box. So it's just a good example of how much there can be going on, and you get too sidetracked on other things. Now, and this is one I'll see this, but I'm not going to assume these are not the only problems. And so often on my report, I'll indicate the extent of this condition is unknown because I really don't know. It's almost like this has Billy Bob written all over it, and I'm not going to assume that this is the only condition that might be existing.
No, this would be one of those where you'd probably say someone needs to review the entire system, right?
I do write that on some reports. If I got enough, I'll just say I'm done with the electric. Have the whole thing scoped out. Probably it's never done, but it's what I write.
To reset or not to reset? Is that the?
it's for me, I wouldn't touch it.
I wouldn't either.
I don't
If I were
know
you,
that-
I wouldn't touch it. Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Y'all shouldn't touch that. Right.
I don't know.
You know, one question we did have too, Scott. It didn't pertain to actually tripping the breaker or anything, but at what point should I report multiple brands of breakers? For example, Bryant or Square D circuit breakers in a GE panel. You know, and does
Here's
everybody else
where
check?
I would be concerned. That's a great question. You know, when you get to 3 or 4 different ones, you know, go up to the panel and kind of jiggle around. There's some out there they'll jig around brand new out of the box with their breakers in them. So it's not always the best test, but anything that's been around for a while was actually probably made better than today's stuff. But jiggle around some of the breakers that look like they don't really belong, even though they're the 1-inch style and they look like they kind of fit. Because what can end up happening is if you're not getting good connections on there, again, it gets back to the thing about what are we trying to do? We're trying to blow a breaker. If it doesn't have a good connection to the breaker doesn't have a good connection to the bus bar, then it's a bad breaker. Might as well be a 50 or a 60 or whatever it's going to take to blow that. So I think it's important you have tight connections. You can report it just as a matter of saying it on everyone to cover your butt, if you will, because when you look and you see that, the Cutler Hammer makes some CL rated ones but they say CL on them. So you'd know if they're classified breakers, actually, if you look at them close. But I mean, the point is there's probably 10 manufacturers that come to mind that are all 1-inch styles, but they're different configurations. They fit differently. You know, if there was a problem with one of them, you could be at fault. So I don't know that would be on my, you know, top of the inspection report, but it's probably worth mentioning.
One comment we had, Scott, that
Mhm.
as far as like, I guess, tripping or not tripping the breaker, the inspector is wondering if an electrician would toss us under the bus if that problem, or like the wiggling, or I guess something to do with shaking the breakers or tripping them.
Well, here's what I think about that. I mean, you guys are saying someone might have cancer, and if someone else comes there and says you don't have cancer, and they sign off on it, then you don't have cancer. You know, that's them saying it, though. You know, I mean, you use your best judgment. You guys. One of the nice things about what you guys have is you don't have to have anything backing it, just your personal opinions, which can be good or bad. But I mean, you know, you're not citing the code, you're not citing local municipality, anything like that. You're just saying, are these listed? And some guy could come along and say, my name's Joe King, I'm a great electrician, and you're gonna, you know, don't worry about this, buddy, you know. But when he writes it on there, it's not your problem anymore. And I wouldn't worry about being, as one thing I tell Eric all the time, you guys have thick skin anyways. Everybody hates inspectors, you know, so that's a tough gig, man. I could
Really?
never do it. Oh.
Okay.
It's a good one.
See if everybody thinks about this one and what's wrong with it.
I don't know about the black handles with that white, though, Eric. You know,
This is electric baseboard heater. Different than one from a hydronic system. And as far as I know, no outlets should be over an electric baseboard unit because of the heat that's coming off of those things.
good catch.
Yeah, we do have one attendee mention that.
Same thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Great catch.
I sometimes will use the infrared thermometer to show how hot that convector is getting. You know, people begin to get that, and I tell them, you know, don't use both at the same time. not going to expect anybody to go ripping something out, but
That we used the word bonding bushing before, but the second part of bonding or grounding bushing is bushing, and no matter where you are, what you do when you get to service, you have to use some type of bushing to prevent basically from the bends in the wire from ever turning into
what we're talking about is around
mhm,
here, because eventually that could cut into the sheathing
mhm.
with that one. Okay.
Okay. Now there was a question. Getting back to is a statement as well as a question. Going back to the attic wiring, and you don't have to go back to that, Eric, but this is
Okay.
his point. Many inspectors say review by qualified contractor, and the inspector says realistically, my comment is that the electrical system exhibits improper wiring methods. This is a fact and opinion. The guidance is that it requires repairs. We do not want to specify repairs that will get you into trouble. Telling people, however, that repairs are required is more informative than, quote, review by a contractor. So that's his approach to it, and there's nothing wrong with that, I guess. I don't know, Scott, do you have any comment about that?
Yeah, I suppose, without mandating that, who look at it or what they look for or anything, but I mean, you could throw words in there like unique, dangerous, the disclaimer appears to be, but I think those kind of words hopefully get the attention of someone. I mean, you're trying to, I understand that you want something done. You think it's serious enough to bring it up. So yeah, I would use as strong a word as you can without mandating. I don't know what lines you guys can cross and what have you, but I would call a spade. But I don't have the same. You guys have some pretty tough people to deal with.
Well, I sometimes will write, actually quite a bit, I'll write to have it evaluated and then corrected as deemed necessary. So I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's right. I'm raising a question. I don't seem to get people squawking about that.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's good. Now another question that came up about the heaters with the receptacles above them. His question was if there are hydronic or oil-filled electric baseboard heaters, what about those? Can they be above the receptacles be above those hydronic baseboard? Say. So Eric, is it the heat that we're talking about? I mean, you did say that.
My understanding is it's the heat from the electric units. The hydronic, it's not. I've never made an issue of the baseboard unit being pardon me, the outlet being present over a hydronic convector. It's when it's electric. Now, oil filled, that's a good question.
I had always thought it was baseboard heaters, not necessarily electric ones, Eric. But I mean, we can provide an answer for everybody on that. Well, code-wise, not that code matters, but just legality and everything like that.
Well, somebody beat you to it, Scott. He posted 424.9 has information about it, and so and then he says it technically is allowed, but I would call it out. This is what the inspector said. So
yeah.
Okay, clarification. What is allowed?
Having the receptacle above the baseboard.
Well, here's the thing, and here's the thing, guys. There are some suggestions which are known as fine print notes in the code, which are like, we don't recommend this, but we can't, we can't hold you accountable for it. So that's a possibility right there.
Okay.
I didn't look it up, but that's the wording.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Good find, though. Good.
Scott and I kind of differed on this one when we initially went over these. So this is being used basically now as a junction box. Okay. My feeble understanding is that once you use an original component of the panel, well, you shouldn't be using, like in this case, you shouldn't be using a neutral bus bar any longer. You shouldn't really be using any of the original components in a panel in a situation like this. Scott was not, he differed a little bit on this one.
Yeah, I think it gets to listing. I don't know how it's been, shown to be illegal. It's done badly. You can see a lot of double taps at the neutral bus bar with bigger wire, stuff like that, and what have you. So if this was researched at all by a good electrician, they would probably find that there's been some things intercepted here that some of them belong at the main panel. So yeah, I definitely called into question, and even if the inspector okayed it, there's some inspectors who do plumbing all day long and they get thrown in on inspection and okay it sometimes. They can get bamboozled, so I'd throw it into question for sure.
Okay. This was just an odd one. I've only seen this a couple of times, and actually, since we were talking the other night, I did find some documentation on this particular light. So if anybody's interested, let me know, and then I can send that to you. I kind of forgot what it said about it, but because I've so seldom seen it, and how to interpret its installation. But it sort of says it is and it isn't. It's kind of what it seems to say, but there is an explanation for this thing. And if you want it, let me know and I can send it to you.
Okay, well, so as you might expect, we do have some debate going on the chat board here. One inspector says 210.52A, NEC states that no receptacles above electric baseboard heaters, flat out. Okay, so just want to let you guys know that. Okay?
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. That's Eric, you are too.
What's that?
That was a good picture. That's a good catch on that baseboard heaters.
I don't remember. It was years ago I heard about that, but I don't know where. Okay. Okay, this next one I really like because I could see you getting hung up on one issue with this next panel, and there's actually two issues.
Well, if everybody could talk, I'm sure a lot of them, first thing we'd say is the stab lock, breaker. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
But so there's another point you're going to, right, Eric?
Yeah, we're gonna. This is one of these things you kind of wonder if you would have seen it.
Yep.
200.
One inspector did see it. He said it's a Federal Pacific 150 rated panel with a 200.
Yes.
Breaker.
Yeah. So if you got, and I've done it. I mean, you see this, and you're going at it with both barrels blazing, and you miss something else that's also wrong. So, kind of goes with. Now, there's a question. Some guys won't even take these panel covers off. You have an opinion on that, Scott?
No, I don't think anyone should do something that they don't feel safe about. I mean,
yeah.
I don't personally have a big issue with them. They're old. What's an old piece of electric equipment going to do?
Would you like to comment about old panels and how we should approach them? Even if everything looks okay, the fact that it is an old panel, how we would approach that?
Yeah, I think you can question if you look up just briefly online and say service life electrical components. You'll generally see something around 40 years. Then you look at a lot of 50 and 60-year-old panels out there. It goes back to the 95-year-old lifeguard at the beach. Hold on, I'm coming down the stairs. I'll be there. The idea is, how reliable is that as a piece of service equipment? Something that old, I mean, it's rusty, it's old, I got to tell you guys a story about this. I was at the company I work for does HVAC as well. So I did a service call where these guys had, our guys couldn't find what circuit was the boiler. So they turned a lot of them off. So I got called over there because these guys were blowing circuits all the time now. And they had a lot of stuff going. They were doing space heaters and all this. And after I got through to a good deal of questioning, it finally occurred to me that this old panel from the 60s had basically gotten atrophy. Without being exercised for so long, they were just kind of frozen in place and they would never blow. Now, when our guys exercised them, all of a sudden they got breakers that blow again. And they're complaining like, what did you do to our panel? Nothing. I did CPR. So that's the thing, is that can happen, which brings me to another point. I think you guys, we had that one blown breaker. I think you guys should all mention and exercise all of the arc fault breakers, because guess what? When they came out in 2001, they were an experiment, or 2002. They were a real experiment. A lot of them will not reset when you do that, which is okay. I mean, you have to know that going into this, if you guys have something for everyone to sign, have them sign it. But when you test that and it won't reset, that's a bad breaker, and it's not going to protect what it's supposed to. So GFIs should all be tested, and somewhere in your things maybe you should have literature about it too. You should always test a hot tub breaker outside. They're GFI breakers by and large, or the other one. So unless they're tripped, of course, or if they're off for the season, you would ask someone, what are you doing? Blah, 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 blah. But, and not leave them on if, there's, but the point is people are being provided extra protection by these things, but they are mechanical. If you had a car sitting at the side of your house for 3 years and you never looked at it or anything, would you jump in and say, let's go to California, honey? No, you would never trust it mechanically. Why would a spring in a breaker be any different? So they should all be exercised.
Okay, good. Okay, a couple question and then maybe a couple comments. Eric, if you could scroll down on this main panel, somebody commented that there's a missing breaker tie.
I'm sorry, you want me to scroll down on this picture? Because this is the full picture.
Actually, Eric, I think it's at the top. It looks like the 100 amp. I think he's talking about the 100 amp.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's not a tie. It doesn't, unless we can't see it.
Well, it almost looks like there's a bridge.
It might be, yeah.
In here.
Yeah. Okay.
Honestly, I don't know.
Okay, so that was one comment. The other one was one guy said he never takes off covers on the FPEs because they come apart. You can't get back together, and they're they're dangerous anyway.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. There's a lot of guys that feel that way.
Exactly.
And it's like Scott said, it's what you're comfortable with. And I know when you pull that off, it's a trick not to have a breaker cut out on you.
Yeah, I think you've probably all done that. I did that one time and kicked somebody's computer off. He was pissed.
Well, that's the concern with the AFCIs.
Yeah.
And when I was on the standards committee, there was a question about testing AFCIs, and it was and I don't know where the standard says about now, but at the time the idea was if the house is occupied, don't test the AFCIs.
Interesting.
And so that's the way I approach it. I said, because it's occupied, wasn't tested, because you don't know what could be on those circuits as opposed to the GFI circuits.
Sure. Okay, so we're getting a bunch of questions. Can you go back to that IC can again. The inspector wanted to know what Scott's opinion was of that.
I have always, as an electrician, bought either Icy Rated or non-Icy Rated. I didn't realize a hybrid like this existed. Part of the listing on IC a lot of times is the trim too, so there's some qualifications Eric would know about. Sometimes even the luminaire can qualify or disqualify it. So it's pretty specialized and a little out there. I didn't even know it existed. I don't use Thompson. I think they're a product of Menards or something like that. Not that that's bad. I just, I don't use it.
Okay, great. That's good for that one. And then to the one you were just on, Eric, the FPE panel. Yeah, that was it. Right. I think that was it. The one that had the 200 amp breaker. Yeah, 200 amp breaker with the 150. So what would you call that, Scott? What's the rating? What do you say?
All right. So think about this, guys. Here's what's happening. All right. Inside that, let's say that everything in a panel is made of straws. Okay. You need some pretty big straws to connect a 200 amp to the bus bar. Well, these straws are only big enough for 150. So it's skinnier, smaller metal that can't either conduct electricity or withstand some of the surges it might get. So it's out, and it's too old to operate on. I mean, this panel's gone. That's what I would do. You guys, you just say it's a mismatch. That's a good catch. But it's a goner.
Okay.
Yeah, I was taught you take the less of the three: the service entrance conductor, the main disconnect, and the panel rating, and that's how you would rate the service. So in this case, it would be 150 amps as the service, plus it's got the 200 amp panel. But I would have rated this one as 150 amps because it's the weak link.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you.
That it on the questions for now?
I think so. The one follow-up question, he just said at 100 amps. I'm not sure if you, I'm not sure what he was referring to. This panel, obviously, and I guess that 100 amp breaker. But the question just was at 100 amp? Question mark.
Yeah, I don't know what that. This was taken 2002, so I can't remember last week.
Okay.
Okay, here we've got 3 or 4 interesting ones. Again, overheating. And Scott, you and I have talked about this on different panels I've seen that I've asked you about, as far as the ability for the panel to be used anymore. It's basically the panel is toast. And
it's stuff from experience. We tried it a couple times in the past where a main breaker had gone out and put another one in, and it failed within a couple years in every case. And so basically, you look at the metal that connects to the bus bar gets retarded from the the inrush of all the current, because when electric has a lot of resistance, it builds up a force to make the connection. It's still trying to make a connection. That's what ends up happening, why all the resulting heat, etc. So that metal gets fatigued, it's distorted, another breaker is going to fail. And these are main breakers. It's not like, okay, their stove ain't going to work. This is, I think everyone has to, if you don't already know this, at least consider, you probably do intuitively, but the main breaker is to protect you from what could be introduced from the outside lines, whether that be from Mother Nature or the utilities, and that could be pretty substantial. So you got this little weak thing here guarding the family. That's not a good scenario.
And I didn't really dig up any photos, but the rust staining you'll see in the panel, and that can lead to corrosion. And I've sometimes wondered about the ability of the breaker to function properly when it's been subjected to water. And a lot of times I'll see that. Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, a lot of times I'll see that because of the service entrance conduit. outside air is coming in, causing a lot of condensation. And I've seen these panels literally dripping wet from condensation. And Scott, you know, I'll see panels that are so rusted, just as we said before, they're a massive safety issue. They need to be thrown out. So anyway, so little stains like this is something to kind of eyeball. Again, sort of the same thing. Now this one got a little bit more interesting. And we talk about electricians coming in and not saying the same thing you're saying, which is okay. But on this one, you can't see it too well in this picture here. Let me see if I can. Now,
Wow.
was that some hot metal or not?
Wow, melted, huh?
Yeah, it's kind of
Jeez.
splattered out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Welding.
So, and I had put this in the report. I had an enlargement with it, and then I got a response back. Whoop, wait a minute, let me see. Wait a minute. No, wait a minute. This was the response on the receipt from the electrician. Let's see if you guys can read that. And I'm done. I'm not going to argue with him. He wants to put that in, and he did. He wants to put that in writing. Have at it. But I don't get into these arguments. I don't tell people the panel has to be replaced. I don't tell them anything. It should be evaluated and repaired as necessary. This guy says it's not necessary.
And just so everybody on the call knows, this is not our Scott that signed that.
But Scott is capable of this.
It depends about the fees. You know, it's all in the fees.
So I actually save receipts like this. It's unbelievable what these guys will write. And sometimes as inspectors, we're not told what someone comes in and how they counter what we have said. But I do have guys come and say this stuff. And again, another example. Yeah.
One question. Does duct seal putty derate service entrance wires?
No, not if it's listed. What that does is it helps prevent a lot of the moisture and everything. If you look in the National Electric Code now, it's actually a requirement that all openings, to the outside be sealed, which a panel is. So no, it doesn't do any derating whatsoever. It's very passive, and it's made for that. Other things you could introduce into that, great stuff. As an example of a product, the expanding styrofoam stuff and what have you. I don't know, but the stuff that we'll use is rated, UL listed for that purpose. That's a good question, though.
But the duct seal could also be outside at the meter box.
Oh yeah, you can do both. You have to do one. You could do both. There's no sin in that.
Yeah. So I will say if I don't see it inside, I'll say there's not evidence unless I can feel air blowing in. Well, then I'm pretty sure there's nothing on the outside with that.
Yeah.
Okay. A question came up. What do you do if there is a lot of condensation in an electrical panel? How do you prevent it and cure it? Because just putting a new panel in isn't going to stop the underlying the underlying problem. So it could just reoccur. So I guess maybe what you're saying, Scott, is putting some of that duct seal or something on the next one.
That helps, but Eric will tell you he's much better at these matters than I am about how a lot of moisture is held into houses, etc. I'll usually turn to someone like Eric and go, "Why do you think this is happening? Did they just build this tight envelope and you're suffocating it. So you want to find out the cause. Yeah, you would be wasting someone's money and put them in a dangerous situation again if you didn't find out what the cause was. You're right. That can add to it, but I wouldn't generally say that that's the reason for it. You know,
Okay.
I will often find water stains that have been traveling down the service entrance conductors down to the main breaker. So I can see where water's been traveling in. So I generally tend to think it's condensation. Could it be something else? Well, you know, it could be, you know, especially if you don't have a drip loop up on the weatherhead. You know, it could be coming in there. That's also a possibility.
A question is, Scott, when did the requirement for duct seal come into the code?
Not sure.
I'd say when water and electricity didn't match or work together. I'd say about that time.
Okay.
It could have been for a long time, and I didn't even know it. I mean, you know, I'm not sure. I've only been around for like 30 years, so I'm not sure when it got to be, though. I didn't pay attention the first 5 or 6 years, any of that stuff.
Now, on this bus bar, the bus bar alone, from what you see on this one, Scott, the panel's done.
I think if you had a toothbrush, it would be fine. Yeah, I mean, the same thing. You know, this looks like it's from a Jacques Cousteau special. Yeah, that's wow.
So this would be a panel replacement. There's not really much in the way of cleaning this.
No.
Yeah.
So just a couple comments. One inspector said that wood behind the panel onto the concrete would maybe help a little bit with condensation.
Yeah,
well,
you know, no. I don't like the idea of wood. All right, so let me qualify this. Not plywood, not any type of a solid piece. A couple of pieces, like 2x4s to keep it off there. Yeah, what ends up happening is you want an air gap, which is basically manufactured into most of the panels now. When you see the guys in new construction, they're blasting a panel onto it because their boss told them to do it quick, you know. So they're boom, boom, you know, with the Remington gun, they're blasting it on there so they can go to the next house. But the point is that violates the air gaps that are built into the backs of the panels. So if you use, you know, regular means to do it, you don't even need wood there, but you need air to go behind it because, you know, what's concrete take 100 years to cure or something like that? So.
Okay. And then one other comment is an inspector just doesn't feel that an inspector should try to tell anyone how to fix anything. So.
Right. And I think you guys have been directing, like, what would you do as an electrician, Scott? I mean, I don't pretend to be an inspector or anything. So those are just personal opinions. I would.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Because if you assume you know the fix and you put it in your report, or you tell your client what the fix is and then they do it and it doesn't solve the problem, you are now part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have followed your advice. So I would tell them it could be this, it could be that, but that's somebody else's decision.
Okay.
So it sounds like you're kind of wussing out of it, but I wouldn't put that liability on myself.
Okay, so we're down to about 5 minutes now, guys. So
okay,
better move on.
Here's where we had a little differential between Scott and I. I was taught no cord ground rods. He doesn't see much of a issue with it.
Yeah. There's different materials they can qualify as ground rods and stuff like that. The biggest issue here is, like, I think the reason you got it is the strands are being held together by a screw that's trying to hold on the warning tag out there, which is not important. So that should be flipped. The wire should be on the other side of what we call an acorn, like that. That's a perfect illustration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
Okay. Water pipe?
I was looking up some permissible grounding electrodes, and 3/4 inch galvanized actually qualifies. So it's something you probably can't call. This isn't in the greatest shape or anything, but in case you guys can't tell, I'm not a big advocate. Ground rods are great and everything like that, but they're an invitation that lightning often ignores. They're really there for lightning, and I think they should be in place, but I don't go crazy over them.
Okay.
Ooh, nice.
I don't remember whose photo this was. It's another ASHI member. And to keep moving along, number one, the problem we'll have is that we'll see as inspectors, it's all covered with insulation, which now that's a problem. But now we've hooked up Romex into it.
Yeah.
And
You can't expand.
That's the end of it.
Right. You can leave it in place, but you can't expand it. You're exactly right, Herc.
Yeah. This was kind of yeah, we won't spend time on this one.
Yeah.
No, but this does get back to, and it doesn't show it, but one of the questions somebody asked earlier was, do you call out double tap neutrals?
Yeah. There's very few terminals that are made for more than one conductor. So yeah, you should call it out. I wouldn't ring the bell on emergency unless it was really poorly done. Bigger wires are a bigger concern because they're taking more ampacity on. But it's like a family of five. Someone's going to go hungry if you get too many things under there.
Okay.
This one was just an odd one, this one I took quite a while ago. I didn't like the connections here, but as Scott said, it was basically designed to be installed this way.
Yeah, so, they look tentative, but I think they're legal.
Yeah. So I just thought that this was an interesting one. All right, let me get out of this one. This is the one I was Scott.
Yeah. This is like the 80s book, Beware the Naked Man Who Offers You His Shirt. So the idea is this. The inspector knew that this house I was at recently, knew that the panel was 2-wire Romex, okay? The whole house was done that way. And he tested all the outlets and they were fine, and he didn't question that. So how did that become created? Little tricks like this. They took the neutral and they put it on the ground screw. So when you stick most testers in there, most testers are going to show that you have a correctly wired receptacle when you do that. That's how they created the ground.
Scott, any way other than removing the receptacle, I mean, would like a wiggy or some other instrument besides the 3-pronged tester could check this?
I guess, you know what? Here's the thing. No, I wouldn't open a device if I were you guys. So here's the thing. That's a warning. That should have rung a bell in that person's head. Like, how do I have grounded outlets and I had 2-wire Romex? I mean, that's just something to make that connection in your head and say this is impossible and call it out. You don't have to investigate it. You can get shocked. This is actually a really dangerous way to do things. So yeah, you don't need to mess with stuff like that.
Okay.
I don't know if we really came up with something on this one, Scott. I questioned it when I saw it.
Yeah.
As an electrician, do you have an opinion?
We have to follow a lot of codes. We have to follow manufacturers, and we also have to follow what the utilities say, and the utilities would have a problem with it. I don't know if it'd be grandfathered or not, but I don't think that panel's been there as long as that gas meter's been there personally.
I would say not. Yeah.
Perhaps the fact that it's not, the clearance is not sufficient in front of the panel.
Yeah, that, and if you look at the wire that's feeding this thing, boy. I guess if you start laughing when you open a panel, that's enough of a clue to the homeowner that there's a problem, right?
Well, the listing sheet said all new electrical.
Wow.
And then we want to be cautious of.
Excuse me, we did have a comment about the gas meters. Someone said that they're not allowed within 5 feet of the electrical panel.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's a ComEd Red Book thing, or no, gas, one of the two. Yeah.
And then the other question, Eric, was that plastic pipe coming in, that the feeder on the left at the top. Looks like it.
I don't know what that was.
Yeah, it's probably Schedule 80, which is fine.
Yeah.
It's rigid PVC. It's probably okay. It's just weird.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I could have been a. Let me see. Could have been a 220. Had a couple of 220 breakers here. I don't know. It was a while ago since this photo was taken.
Okay.
And then a good example of the older wiring. I point out that, you know, the sheathing probably has got some issues with it, and then the insurance companies probably are going to have a little heartache with this wiring, older wiring, even if we don't see the cracking. So that's the last one. We timed this out quite well.
Yeah, we really did. This was great. Let's see now. I think there was one comment.
Main surge. Did you want to still do the main? Or I'm sorry. Go ahead if there's another comment.
Oh, no, go ahead, Scott. While I look up the question.
Okay. So main surge, the way that they're done these days, really, as far as I know, I don't put in 90 different types, but there's a few different types I'll put in. They generally call for you situating a 15 or 20 amp breaker, 2-pole breaker onto the panel, and using that to provide the surge. They don't have you go onto the main lugs because that's not allowed. That's just for your incoming conductors, period.
Okay. Oh, and Scott, the question was, what's the correct way to install a whole house surge protector? Many times it's seen connected to the main service disconnect on or main lugs.
Yeah, that's no bueno. You do not put it on the main lugs at all. Again, it gets back to what are terminals rated for? Are they rated for more than one conductor? No. Are they rated for anything else besides service equipment? No. So that has to be going to a 2-pole breaker that's in there. It'll protect itself. We actually have installed a few over the years that have protected homes from more damage. Yeah, they will protect them that way.
Okay. Okay. And then we did have a nice comment from one inspector. He said that the tester for Phantom fake ground, the manufacturer's name is Ideal, model number 61-164. I can send this out to everybody if they want a copy of it.
That one lets you know.
Yeah, if you've got he says Phantom ground. It's cool. Ideal, model number 61-164.
164, Ideal. Yeah, Klein just came out with one that actually is battery operated that I'm trying out. I don't know how good it is, but you guys might want to check that out too. It actually tells you the millivolts under which it blew the GFI, which is cool.
Well, Scott's coming out to my house to do some work on Sunday. Why he works on Sunday, I don't know. But I've got one of those Ideal meters, so remind me and I'll let you use it. Because I haven't pulled it out.
We'll hook up some of your outlets that way, Eric.
Yeah, no, I don't want to know anymore.
Well, just charge him double time, Scott, Sunday. Double time and a half.
Yeah, he's getting back at me for calling out at night to inspect my house, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did it with that townhouse that started at dark.
Okay, just a couple comments. One inspector says that anytime I mention that insurance may be an issue with whatever, the realtor tries to rip his head off because the insurance company won't come out, won't open the panel or whatever he's referencing to. So.
I mean, I think the problem that everyone has now, once you guys inspect a home, is this. It's on record now. So that's just blind ignorance. And there's some realtors out there, you guys know a lot better than I do, who just,
Sure.
think that you're trying to, steal money out of their pocket by goofing up their things. But, no, you're going to get some resistance on that if they think you're blowing a sale. But I know there are insurance companies out there, so you can raise a possibility and it would be a disservice if you didn't. But I mean, I think you should do a little research, because I know that there are some insurance companies out there who won't. They'll say, oh yeah, we'll insure it. You have 90 days to repair or replace it. That's not really covering something. That's going, we'll give you a Band-Aid, but you're fixing it, So if you had some people who had to rip out knob and tube wiring to satisfy their insurance company, that's not a couple $100 tickle. I mean, this could be $20,000 on a bigger house. So it's worth mentioning.
Okay. Another one question is, can an electrical meter on the exterior be next to a gas meter?
I think they have the same requirements. They're not putting gas meters inside houses around here anymore. I think you have to, it's between 3 and 5. I've got the ComEd Red Book here somewhere in my thing. I'll look it up. If you have any more questions, go ahead while I'm looking this up.
Okay.
See if it's in there.
And this question is, seeing appliances in new construction, such as disposals and dishwashers, get their breakers tied when sharing a neutral. Any particulars we should be looking for to verify a follow back to verify shared neutrals?
The reason that they have to do that, you don't have to do that on a network unless they share a yoke. So I'll define that real quick. If I take an outlet and I split it under someone's sink and I say, this is your dishwasher, this is your disposal, but it's on one device, one outlet, they share a yoke, that has to be a 2-pole breaker. Otherwise, no other network need have that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, so another question is, so are you saying that the surge protector must be wired to a dedicated double pole breaker?
Yes, although I have pulled them off of mains before. I have seen that.
Okay, and okay, so getting back to the shared neutral, I think, do amperages of tied breakers in this case need to match?
Nope. On a network, no, you should have a neutral that's capable of the largest load. If you got a 20 amp and a 15 amp, it should be, a 12 gauge, 20 amp size neutral, the bigger of the two.
The neutral, okay, neutral ready for that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, they're still coming in. What's the model number of the Klein tester, I guess, that you're testing?
I don't know. You know what? It's out in my van. I'm sorry. But Home Depot sells them. I think they're $20, maybe 30. It's either 20 or $30. And it requires a battery. You have to turn it on. And then what's interesting about it, I've had this complaint in the past, like, hey, any, GFI in the world is going to test well if you throw, like.
Uh-oh.
This one actually has a calculated thing where it sees how much it takes to blow that GFI. It'll do the milliamps on it. I think by code it's between 1 and 6 or something like that when it has to blow. So I just started using it, but I'm interested in it. And you guys a lot of you are nerds like me. So
yeah. Okay. And so he says, okay, he's got time. Go ahead and run out to your van and get it. I'm kidding.
I'm too old, man. It's cold. I'm old.
That's right.
I'm looking for that gas meter thing.
Oh, okay. Okay. So while Scott's looking,
otherwise I'd be looking for it right now.
Okay. So while Scott's looking that up to answer that last question, I want to thank everybody. We did go over a little bit, but I think the questions were really good. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Give some feedback. We'd love to hear it, and we'll try to schedule something else. I know Gianni, GLC president, wanted to have something like this every month, and so I'm working on something for next month. I think this might be a good time to have some HVAC systems, so maybe we'll get that up, and I'll let you guys know. Any suggestions or questions, send them in, and we'll be happy to see if we can accommodate you guys.
And I'll mention that
I'll give that to Eric too, guys. I'll give that to you, Eric, so you can post it on the Facebook thing if you want.
Okay, and Scott is
in terms of that meter.
If you guys haven't looked,
I am again.
I didn't take you off.
I didn't. I didn't know if I was, well, because of the problems, I went on as a different person.
Oh.
It's long,
Well,
involved story. I'm sorry.
Well, we
And
did have
Facebook
him
is being broken up.
we did have him on the GLC Facebook page, and he was occasionally answering some of the questions that would come up that were electrical. So, but
Okay, guys, get your pencils out and paper. The Klein model number is RT, that's in Robert Tango, 250, and I'm not sure if that's a 1 or an IT. So, yeah. Oh, no, oh, I'm sorry.
And again, I'm not saying everyone wants out and get one. I'm just saying if you're a tool weirdo like I am, you might like that. I'm not endorsing. I haven't used it long enough. You know, I can't tell you if it's going to crack in two in a month, but it's pretty cool. So.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's model number RT250. He wrote I think. He just didn't finish the think. So that's not. So it's RT250. Okay.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Okay. Okay. Well, everybody, thank you very much, Scott. I really appreciate it. This was great. You know,
Yeah,
it's
no, I
nice to have
enjoy it.
somebody
Yeah.
on the front lines that sees what we see and is you know, reasonable and understands the position we're in. And you know, I mean, we can laugh at these things too because you know, I mean, some of it's funny, but it is dangerous. So it's really important to save lives. That's the main thing.
good. Well, hopefully everybody's learned a little something tonight, and that's the idea.
Okay.
Yeah. No, good. Good for you guys. Kudos to y'all.
Okay. Okay, guys, we'll take care and good night, everybody. And I'm going to close this off. And like I said, feed any comments in and we'll be happy to work on it if we can. Okay.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Stay safe, everybody. Take care.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye. Bye.